So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I would like to thank you for being here. Also, I would like to give a message to Microsoft. You're very kind for hosting us and hosting this event about Wi-Fi today. I would like to thank today also to the demonstrators. We are having some technical expositions organized by Meta and by Broadcom. So I invite you to take time during the break to see those demonstrations. And especially I would like to thank the speakers. I will come back on the organization and the agenda later. Here is very exciting today to see so many delegates from the European Parliament, from the European Commission, from different administrations. I think this is a selected group of participants. It's very exciting to see you all here. I would also like to thank our allies. We have been, as Dynamic Spectrum Alliance, we have been leading this campaign about the importance of Wi-Fi, and it couldn't be the same if we wouldn't join forces. So I'm very glad to see here all the supporters, all the allies that are present. So, as my position, I am the president of the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance. For those of you that are not very familiar with the DSA, and I know in Europe that is used for something else, so we represent Dynamic Spectrum Alliance. We are a global organization, and we work with regulators and administrations from all around the world, promoting flexible frameworks and best practices to make spectrum abundant. We think that spectrum shouldn't be a barrier for connectivity, and we promote different types of technologies that particularly have license-exempt access or also enable spectrum sharing using automated tools. That's important for connectivity, and that's also important to foster innovation. And as the title of the event suggests, Wi-Fi does matter. It's really one technology that has been growing for the last years. It all started in 1999 when we had the first versions of the standard. And now I think it's really, I'm sure all of you use Wi-Fi at some point. It's really available in so many devices. It's part of our daily life. With COVID, we saw how important it was for connectivity, working from home, for students to continue their activities. And that's why we use, as part of our message, that it's omnipresent. It's kind of always there, and we give it for granted many times. So it's important to keep this type of discussions, because as any other technology, Wi-Fi also needs important resources, spectrum in particular, to continue operating and to grow. So this is a technology that still has many new things to provide, and we need to make sure that it has the necessary resources, and in particular, the spectrum to continue offering the service to customers at home, but also for enterprises. So today we want to raise awareness about the pivotal role that Wi-Fi plays in providing connectivity, and especially in Europe. We have seen that European policymakers recognized the value of Wi-Fi. We have seen the Digital Decade Policy Program that has been adopted, and it reflected the technological neutrality, where many different technologies were recognized. So we have fiber, we have 5G, we have satellite and Wi-Fi, and all of them have a role to play. But however, that's not enough, and we still have an opportunity for Europe in this year at the World Radiocommunication Conference to make sure that the positions that will be adopted by the region will really create the good conditions for Wi-Fi to grow in the future. For those of you that are not very familiar with WRC, this is a conference led and organized by ITU. It takes place every 4 years. Last one was in 2019. And we're going to be in Dubai, November and December this year, discussing about modifications to the radio regulations. There is in particular one agenda item 1.2, that discusses new frequency bands that could be identified for IMT. So it means for mobile communications. And the requirement of that agenda item is to make sure that incumbents in the band are protected. And we are going to hear also from their perspective about the studies that have been ongoing. So one of the frequency bands that is considered under agenda item 1.2 is the 6 gigahertz band. And so there are a lot of discussions about the future of that band. And right now, Europe is it's exactly the good timing to decide which is going to be the European position and how customers and European business are going to be protected and how we can ensure that they can continue to benefit from Wi-Fi. This appears to be very technical, but in reality, it goes beyond the technical perspective. So you're going to hear also from different stakeholders how Wi-Fi is important for them and how, if there are not the right policies in place, they could have problems of connectivity, and broadband connectivity could have a bottleneck. Today's program is a packet one. We will have 2 panels. The first one will be moderated by Daniel Dalton, and we are going to hear about current EU policy initiatives, and we are going to analyze the interaction of some significant developments for European connectivity. We are going to hear about Wi-Fi for Europe project. We are going to hear about Gigabit European targets and many other aspects related to WRC 23. Our second panel is going to be moderated by Ilsa Godlovich, and we are going to show the society and the societal and the role played by Wi-Fi and the next generation of Wi-Fi. So those are Wi-Fi 6E and Wi-Fi 7. And it's going to also bring different expertise from the speakers and see how it impacts SMEs, the green and digital transition, and many use cases like health, education, and others. Thank you again for being present today. After so many virtual meetings and virtual events, I think it's really important to see each other, to have the opportunity to have conversations during the coffee break, and to have this type of interaction. So it's really a pleasure to see you face to face. I won't take much more of your time, so I would like now to leave the floor to Ms. Fallesen. She's from the Cabinet Vestager. Ms. Fallesen has an extensive experience at the European Commission, and she's now in charge of telecommunications in the Cabinet of Executive Vice President Vestager.
Thank you very much for inviting me and for having me. I'm honored to open this very interesting event today. I will very briefly touch upon what we are doing in the Commission in the area of connectivity and how we tried our best to address the challenges that we are all facing. In recent years, the Commission has taken action in a range of areas to improve connectivity, for instance, by putting an end to roaming charges, allowing all of us to continue to call and transfer data across EU borders for the same cost as we do at home. The EU provides funding, technical guidance. We set up working groups to help public administrations and businesses working together to improve network coverage and to introduce proper 5G networks. We also have this Wi-Fi for EU initiative, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with, which has funded the setup of free Wi-Fi hotspot in local communities. As mentioned also by Marta, we have the digital decade targets. In particular, for the Commission, that means that by 2030, all European households will have to be covered by gigabit networks and all populated areas by 5G performance networks, at least. But unfortunately, there's still some way to go. We are unfortunately not on track with these digital decade targets, in particular as concerns the rollout of fiber and 5G. But of course, Wi-Fi matters as well, obviously. But this is really where we have, unfortunately, our key effort, because this is where we're lacking behind the most in 5G and fiber. That has to be speeded up, the rollout. So we're working on a number of initiatives that are coming very soon. I'm sure you've heard, some of you, of some of it. One of the initiatives is the revision of the Broadband Cost Reduction Directive, dating back from 2014. It's currently being reviewed with the aim to simplify and digitalize administrative procedures, and this very much concerns permitting. It will also ensure more coordination of civil works and make all new and major renovated buildings fiber-ready already at construction stage. We're also working on a revision of the access recommendations, which are 2 recommendations dating back to, I think, 2007 and 2013. Here we have to align with new technologies and also help the transition from copper to fiber, as well as ensuring that all operators, they have access to the network infrastructure at fair conditions. Furthermore, we are working on a broad public consultation that will be launched very soon to gather figures and facts on the health of the telco sector or the connectivity sector in general, but also in terms of challenges and future infrastructure needs. It will be a very broad consultation. The document is very long, so I warn you, you will need some time and you probably will have to double check a few figures before filling it out. It will cover various topics, but one of them is how to promote single market for telecommunications. This is something that is very, very close to the heart of the EVP I'm working for, EVP Vestager. We also have, as part of this public consultation, some questions on the issue of the OTT fair share or network fees, with a view to investigate the scope, if any, of this investment gap that telco operators, they claim are hindering them or preventing them to roll out 5G and fiber in the EU. Finally, we also have in the pipeline a new radio spectrum policy program, currently in the Commission work program for third quarter of 23, which will also feed in to this ITU conference later this year in Dubai. So I could go on and on, but I'll stop here because I think this gives hopefully a bit of an overview. But as you can see, 2023 will be a very busy year in terms of policy making, concrete policy making in the area of connectivity. And we rely on all of you. There'll be a public consultation opening very soon, so we really hope you will all go and participate in this. And of course, we aim for your support in all the other aspects as well. So many thanks for your time, and I look forward to the discussions.
So if I can ask the panelists to come up, and while they're coming up, I'll introduce them all to you. First of all, we've got Hervé Dupuy, who is Head of Unit on the Connecting Europe facility in the European Commission. It's a unit responsible for the Wi-Fi for EU programme. Sean Ennis, CRRE Research Fellow from the University of East Anglia in the UK. Martha Suarez, who you've already heard, of course, who's the President of the Direct Spectrum Alliance, the DSA. Natalia Vicente, Director of the Public Affairs and Communications at the Global Satellite Operators Association. And we also have Giovanni Zorzoni, who is the President of the Italian Internet Providers Association. And he is just a little bit delayed, but when he arrives, he'll come straight onto the panel. So I think that was really interesting, what we heard from the Commission, and lots of things that we can get into here. But I'd like to start, first of all, with you, Hervé, to maybe give us a little bit of a run-through of the Wi-Fi for EU programme, how it worked, what you learned for it, how can that type of sort of project help facilitate future connectivity?
Okay, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Indeed, I'm responsible in the newly established Health and Digital Executive Agency, an agency established by the European Commission for the implementation of some of its program. And one of the initiatives, the Wi-Fi for EU, is part of the legacy, I would say, from the previous years that we're still implementing. We've reached the point where, indeed, we can clearly see the output and the impact of this initiative. As you remember, the idea came up back in the years of the Juncker Commission, and then it really developed in 2018 and the following years through calls for proposals where the beneficiaries, municipalities across Europe, had the opportunity to apply in a very user-friendly way, because we established a portal where they could, easily, by just a couple of clicks, register and apply. And it turned out to be already at that point in time quite a success. We have by now registered on our portal 30% of all European municipalities who spontaneously came to us. And that, I think, in itself is a figure that shows that we were hitting the right chord. Mm-hmm. There was definitely a need for Wi-Fi connectivity in public spaces, which was really the project, and the municipality saw a role for them. And for us, it was quite fascinating to see so many municipalities from all areas of Europe, even the most remote, unpopulated islands, even in outermost regions. You could actually see all these municipalities' enthusiasm. Finally, there is something for us at European level, easy to apply, let's go for it. And we had 4 calls for proposals. It was on a very simple basis, first come, first served. The result of this kind of excitement was also visible in the calls. We had up to 12,000 applicants in some of those calls. So it was literally a wave of municipalities coming to us, trying to get the voucher. And this, as you know, Wi-Fi Free is a voucher scheme. It's only 15,000 euros per voucher, lump sum. So easy to manage, but it was really what we could offer for installation of Wi-Fi in public spaces. The end result of these calls has led to 8,800 municipalities in Europe awarded a voucher across all European countries. As I said, even in the most remote areas where your grandmother was born, there might be a Wi-Fi for you network by now. It really is, you're going down to those kind of remote places you've never heard of or hardly. And then the deployment was the challenge. As you know, it is a technology which requires bandwidth, and that was definitely one of the digital gap that we had to face. 30 megabit per second was the minimum requirement for delivering this network. Some municipalities could not deliver simply, and they had to pull out. In some other cases, obviously, we faced the COVID, the pandemic impact. The equipment could not reach those places because the chipsets and all the supply chain equipment during pandemics was at stake. So we had some delays in the rollout, but now we're reaching the very final stage. This month, we will make the last payments for the last networks being set up. And we can proudly say that we have 9,000 plus networks all over Europe. You will see, I will send you the slides and one of the slides shows the map of Europe. It's across the whole continent. We have 93,000 hotspots. We have by now literally close to 10% of all municipalities in Europe which have rolled out a Wi-Fi for you network. So great success, great visibility for Europe of results, Europe close to the citizens, and that technology was the vehicle towards this goal. So thanks to all of you. Maybe you somehow, through your business, you participated in this endeavor. So thanks for that. And we're glad to have been the vehicle for this success. Thank you.
Thank you. And Marta, how would Wi-Fi in general play in the overall sort of connectivity challenge to move towards a Gigabit Europe? What's the role for Wi-Fi in that?
Yeah, thank you. Indeed, right now we talk about broadband access, and it's important to recognize that there are many technologies that can provide that broadband access, and Wi-Fi is one of the key ones because of the capabilities that it has been offering. So we have seen an evolution in terms of standards. We had first, started with Wi-Fi. I remember, for those that are in the technical side, IEEE, all the versions, and right now we call it Wi-Fi 6. It's the latest generation, and when it operates in the 6 gigahertz band, we call it Wi-Fi 6E. So I hope future hotspots of European programs and in different rollouts will be using this latest technology. The advantage of Wi-Fi 6E is that you could have different channels available, so higher throughput, lower latency, more users connected, enhanced security, so many good advantages. The roadmap is that for Wi-Fi 6E to operate in the 6 gigahertz band, we need to have enough spectrum. So it's like a highway. It's like we could have many lanes. The more we have, the better in terms of throughput. And we could have, if we have the entire band, we could have up to 7 channels operating at the same time, and this is important for dense environments. For example, let me take the example of a public hotspot. I don't know how many users might connect at the same time on a peak hour, but for sure there are many. So the first that will arrive, they will take the most profit of the network. But then if you have more and more users at the same time, what the network will do is that they will start reducing the performance so everyone can receive the service. So if we have sufficient spectrum, and that's part of the improvement that we're having with the technology, if you have sufficient spectrum, then we could have large channels, and we can expect throughputs of the order of gigabits per second. And that's how it connects to the gigabit society goals, because we expect to have very high throughputs. And it's also related to new applications, for example, AR, VR, that's more for indoor environments or for fixed locations. But we will need also enough capacity, so all those devices of AR, VR will operate properly, and they will be license exempt, because it doesn't make sense to have a SIM card for every one of those devices. So that's another application that is very important. So we see that Wi-Fi technology has been delivering. The next generation is Wi-Fi 7, and in that where we are going to have channels of up to 320 megahertz. So if Europe only opens 500 megahertz, it means we would only have one channel of 320 megahertz. So that's good if you are the only user of the network. But if not, it's not good if you're in dense environments or if you're planning to use Wi-Fi for industry applications, because in that case, if you have the entire band, you could have at least 3 non-overlapping channels. So technology has been delivering. There have been many great improvements, and it's really up to all of you to make sure that any future public investment, that any private investment in updating the networks will be really able to take the most profit of the available technologies.
And Natalia, maybe coming to you now, how does the satellite communication fit into this?
Well, thank you very much. It's very nice to be here today. So it's interesting because I think we have a lot of common points in this discussion, and I think we share a lot of things with what Wi-Fi industry is saying. For the satellite sector, for GSOA, what we have seen is that throughout the last few years, but especially even since the establishment of the association in 2014, when it was still a SOA, there has been a continuous innovation in the industry, but continuous innovation in the ecosystem. But I think what we all have seen is that there is continuous demand from the citizens. We need to be connected everywhere. How to connect everyone everywhere is the challenge. And I think one of the things that we have seen, especially in Europe during the last few years, it's a little bit of a change in mindset. It cannot be achieved with one technology. And that's why when we have directives or when we have action plans and when we have anything at any level, national, regional, we need to make sure that we are inclusive. We are not only thinking in our minds about fiber or about a specific technology. We include the possibilities for Wi-Fi, for satellite, because it's only with all of them together that we can achieve any kind of goals. Whether it is the gigabit goals, whether it is the next ones that will come, it is about connecting everyone to what they need, to a meaningful connectivity. That is this terminology of what the citizen needs. And in this sense, and as Marta was saying before, I think the decisions in WRC this year are crucial for worldwide, but they are crucial for Europe too. If we want to be the ones connecting everyone, we need to make sure that those decisions protect the services that exist today, but also the ones that are coming in the future with innovation. Satellite is a sector that has innovated in the last decade enormously, from geo-traditional satellites, but also now we have the MEO, the LEO constellations. We have Europe clearly investing and believing that there is a better way of doing or achieving the connectivity goals. And for that, we need to make sure that the spectrum that is, as Marta was saying, the highway, but also a little bit the blood, what makes the system function, is available for everyone. What happens in the 6 GHz band in the upper side for us is that clearly, I mean, the issue is quite technical. If we focus on the studies that have been done, they show that satellite that is using this band cannot share it with IMT without suffering interferences, without harmful, jeopardizing the services that are provided. While other studies have shown that, indeed, with Wi-Fi, with the necessary limitations, it can work. What this means, and this is the technical part, but I think many times in the WRC world and in the ITU world, we only talk technical, and we sometimes forget what it implies in the day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. The services that are used in this band for satellite are maritime services, are aircraft services, but not only. If we talk about the services that are used are also on the navigation systems or sensors to monitor weather forecast and climate change. And so if you think about those services and think about the possibility of losing all of them, we get into the reliability of services that the citizens are using without even knowing. Services that we are all relying on for the safety of the aircrafts to arrive in land, for the maritime matters. And so I think it's when we come to WRC, but also in any directive at European level, it is about that inclusiveness. It is about thinking what are the requirements in spectrum-related matters for those services to be able to innovate and to continue deploying themselves. And I think this only can happen when there's collaboration, and that there's collaboration between the technologies, and there's these discussions that clearly show that we can all provide and arrive to those goals that we want. We can all provide and arrive to the technology is there to provide the connectivity, but we need to make sure that we have the basis right, and not being just omnipresent and given for granted, but also acknowledging that we are necessary. And I think with that, I will open this.
Thank you. And Sean, I mean, we've already heard mention about spectrum. And what are the challenges here in trying to make decisions in the spectrum policy? And you were mentioning it a bit to me earlier.
Well, I think that the key challenge is whether to allocate spectrum by auction, perhaps, or by a license-exempt approach, which decides what purpose it will actually be used for. And the OECD has recently made a general statement that auctions lead to the most efficient allocation of spectrum, and that statement is what I want to take issue with today, because I think it's quite a general statement that doesn't consider all the detailed facts that might need to come into consideration for the particular questions related to upper 6 gigahertz. And so the reason that value of using the spectrum for Wi-Fi or mobile could reasonably be expected to be higher for Wi-Fi than spectrum are related to the existing spectrum scarcity problems, which for mobile can be solved in other ways, and which will take a long time to solve for mobile. But if you look at the social benefits, the societal benefits from using Wi-Fi, they can be very, very large, but very difficult to convert into a price in an auction. So the bidders in an auction for this capacity who are based on Wi-Fi would have great difficulty kind of coordinating a bid. There's so many producers. They have what is currently a non-excludable technology, so they can't charge individual users for getting access to it. And it's hard for them to coordinate because they don't know, they have different values for that spectrum now, and their future values are likely to differ substantially also. And so all that means that that the Wi-Fi users are not going to be able to put in an effective bid that really represents something like the social value of Wi-Fi for this spectrum. On the other hand, the mobile users would have excludable allocation, excludable rights to the spectrum if they are brought in, and so they would be able to place a higher personal valuation on the spectrum, even if the social value of the use in mobile is lower. So my concern is that if we put out this spectrum for auction, mobile could very well win, even if Wi-Fi is the higher value use. And that's the exact reason why we might be wanting to look at having some license-exempt approaches sometimes. And as an economist, I think many economists have been quite concerned about using license-exempt approaches for allocation of goods. But in this particular instance, because of the facts here, because of the difficulty of coordination for bidding and the difficulty of appropriating value from those bids, I think there's a really strong case for looking at a license-exempt distribution. And I've just released on SSRN today a paper that is going into more details about this argument. I think one of the key points here is that governments do sometimes give out assets at below market value. They have parks. Parks are not what, I mean, if you were to put parks out to bid, developers would normally win that space, but it's not necessarily the case that you want developers always to have that space. It's often, if you look at the way cities allocate land for some uses, they may provide below cost, below value land for hospitals and other things with a high social value. So government does take into account social value when allocating resources, and I think that should also be the case with respect to spectrum sometimes. And you know, there's some arguments that the spectrum, if it's auctioned, will generate very good revenue for governments. That's certainly something to consider, but it's quite possible that upfront auctions right now for spectrum will not yield enormous revenue because mobile operators don't have a very, very high need for that spectrum at the moment. So they won't be willing to pay a lot for it. But the economic value generated through other uses in Wi-Fi might be quite substantial and could lead to also filling up the treasury through a different route, through the sales of the goods and services that come over Wi-Fi. So we'll just encourage you to take a look at this paper I've released, and also to keep in mind that a number of jurisdictions have already selected that they are going to allocate this spectrum to Wi-Fi, and it would be a shame to lose the worldwide economies of scale that could come about from having goods produced for worldwide distribution over that spectrum.
I guess to make that case, though, you've also got to define what the potential societal benefits are. And,
absolutely.
And I was going to bring Giovanni in here from the Italian internet providers. And you know, what are these societal benefits, and particularly in the next generation of Wi-Fi? What are the opportunities here?
If you permit, I want to give you a clear idea about the Italian market and why Wi-Fi was important in the last 25 years. Our association have nowadays pretty good regional operators that have multi-regional fiber networks, but at the beginning, the only thing that we can resell was copper. When finally Wi-Fi was starting the market, a lot of most of the companies of our association are old-style hackers, ham radio expert, electronic and also programmers that started a telecommunication company when the monopoly was over in 1995 in Italy. Then we to find a different solution to connect companies, because most of our associated are or ESP providers or cloud providers. So we started to use license-exempt frequencies and modify equipment in order to use external antennas to do point-to-point links with Wi-Fi technology. So we reused the technology to bypass Telecom Italia network. This was the only network that can use most of the time to connect a company. As only by having the way to escape this monopoly, it was by de facto monopoly of the access network, we can grow. Then finally we can have money to invest in digifiber. Nowadays, most of our companies, all the counted, we have just a little more than 1 billion of income, all included in our ESP. Have a lot of coverage, both in northern part of Italy and in the southern part, and have the problem to scale. Where to scale? To scale also inside small industries, small small companies, and of course retailers, so houses. And we have an incredible problem to solve when we want to have the digital compass 1 gigabit per second in our houses, and to keep with the same speed with Wi-Fi, with today technology. And we started a battle 2.5 years ago in order to at least allocate of course by free use the lower part of the spectrum, or the 6 gigahertz spectrum. But we are in the since 2 years the only association that are really making pressure, both with the previous cabinet and then nowadays the Giorgia Meloni cabinet, and we are speaking with all the ministry, because without having the full spectrum, we will never be able to have the speed, or the 10 gigabit speed that we are already providing to the final, to the end users. Also, we have a lot of examples that of particular application that we can provide with Wi-Fi. Also in both in industry, but also in the agriculture. So we provided to the Ministry of the Agriculture in Rome last week some demos of Wi-Fi technology. Is Wi-Fi 6E in this example, and how we can make scale better with the full spectrum. So we have provided concrete, very something that we can see and we can understand very clearly. It is a matter that is very important with politics, because they need to. Of course, I can speak with Italy. They need to understand very well in a very low level point of view why it's so important that Italy say that yes, we want the full spectrum also here, and we want to say, hey, we don't want to change for the upper spectrum window and to give it to 5G, because of course maybe someone don't know, but in Italy it gives the more spectrum for 5G than anybody else, than any other nation. So is understandable to do also, to give also this spectrum. So I think that we are doing fine as association to persuade politics, and I think that of course, again, in Italy, something will happen in the following weeks. I hope so. So we are all working hard, because this technology is for our point of view, and I finish, life or dead, because you see that there is also something like about OTT paying ESP or something like that. Landlines for the retailers lives only for 2 reasons. The first, because they can use it wirelessly, because nobody will never use a fiber to the home connectivity without having a full quality Wi-Fi experience. It's impossible. The second is OTT. Without OTT, nobody will ever sell a landline FTTH, because everyone will just use some small application with low quality streaming by using cell phone. So it's incredible that nobody cares about something very simple like that, but we are trying our best in order to make a very clear position, and to again explain for well to politics something that is very, very understandable for, I think, for all of us. So we are working hard, and I think that we can make all of us the difference. So we have to push, and absolutely, I think that we can do it.
Thank you. I mean, Marta, this World Radiocommunication Conference that's coming later this year. Now, this is crucial, isn't it? And I'd love you to explain a little bit why it's crucial, what the impact on Europe could be, and where we're going with that.
Yeah, thank you. So I think you have heard from all the speakers about the trade-offs and the situation. So the band is currently used. There are some users there. Satellite is one of them, but also fixed links that are used for microwave connections. So that is like the backhaul of connectivity. And we also have different types of applications. There is radio astronomy, and there are many additional applications. So the band is not empty. It's a spectrum that has already incumbents using it. And there is a discussion if there should be an IMT identification. If I may explain in a simple way, it's like we put something and say, okay, this could be used for mobile communications. It seems innocent because at the end, every state or every administration will decide what to do. But it's not that innocent because it gives a clear message saying this ban at some point will need to be clean. So you will need to move all those users that are there somewhere else in order to prepare the ban that could be eventually be auctioned. So that's what Shin was saying. And their operators could use it in the future. So it's a traumatic process because it's not like thinking about sharing. There are many technical studies, not only for satellite, but also for fixed, that shows that for example, for fixed links, it's like if you want to use it, you need to keep distances that can go from 10 to 70 kilometers. So for a big city, I mean, you basically block the city. So that's the trade-off. And then what the discussion is about is like, why do we need that ban for IMT? And that is also part of the question, because there have been many frequency bands that have already been identified for IMT that mobile operators could use. Even many of those have not been used yet. The last WRC in 2019, we identified a lot of spectrum in the millimeter waves. So that's high frequency bands. And at the time, the message was like, we need those bands for 5G, which I believe is true, but they are still not assigned. There are other frequency bands, like for example, 3.5 gigahertz band, that are available for IMT and that have very good capacity that could be used for many of the 5G applications. So at the DSA, we are not against 5G. We think it's important. We just believe that 6 gigahertz is not the right band for IMT to grow. And then when you start understanding some of the arguments of why that band is needed, sometimes you hear, yeah, because we need that also for indoor applications. We just don't believe that IMT is the ideal solution for indoor connectivity, broadband access. We believe that the best combination for indoors is fiber to the home connected with very performant Wi-Fi. And that is also related to the sustainability goals in Europe, because we are going to have buildings that are more and more protected. And if we have that combination of fiber and Wi-Fi, we think that that's the key approach, and we use mobile connectivity and 5G connectivity for outdoors, where users are moving from one place to the other, because that's the principle, mobile connectivity. So that's the discussion. That's what we are going to see. This study for WRC is only in Region 1. So at the ITU level, Region 1 is Europe, Middle East, and Africa. It means that Region 2, the Americas, and Region 3, Asia Pacific, are not studying the entire band. They're just studying a small piece of it with 100 megahertz. So we are not expecting to see harmonization for that band. And if we have an IMT identification for Region 1, somehow we are creating 2 blocks. So that's not good for users. The best outcome for users is to have global harmonization, we believe, in 6 gigahertz for Wi-Fi, protecting the incumbents that are already in the band, and then to have global harmonization for IMT, for mobile networks, in other bands where there is already a huge ecosystem. So that's how crucial it is, because it's going to define the future of broadband connectivity for 5G, for fiber to the home connected with Wi-Fi, and for the next generations of Wi-Fi, and also the future of satellite communication. So it's really important.
And this was, I think, what the Commission were referring to earlier, where they're also preparing the position going ahead of it. Natalia, did you want to comment?
No, if I may, on this one, precisely because as satellites, we are very involved also in all the other agenda items. 1.2 is one of them, but I can tell you that my members know the details on all of the other ones that are related to satellite, of course. And I think what is still relevant to understand is, while here we are talking about 1.2, and we are seeing that the studies clearly say that IMT, it's, let's say, not the place to be for them. We need to make sure that that doesn't mean that they just go to any other place that still needs to be protected because there's other services or because there's plans to use those frequencies for satellite in our case. And so to really study all of them together, not just seeing the decision on one and doesn't matter, we decide something else that is going to jeopardize or cause harm to the services. So not just because one is going to be our way or the way that we think it could go better for our services, the other ones are dismissed. In fact, all of those agenda items, and if you want to have some fun and check what the WRC is about, I invite you to check the agenda items that can and are relevant for our industry, but especially for the ecosystem itself to be able to flourish.
We've got about 5 to 10 minutes left, and we do want this to be as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions, please put your hand up and we'll get a microphone to you. If there are no questions, I will carry on with some questions, but just wanted to check first. Yes, the gentleman there. We do have a microphone.
My name is Christian Spier, and I'm a researcher at the University of Namur. And linked to these discussions on, let us say, the capacity of Wi-Fi, I mean, I had a question, it's also for the Commission, it's the application of the open internet regulation to Wi-Fi. I mean, is it applicable or not? When we look to the BEREC guidelines, we see it's not applicable for restaurants and cafes. But for example, when you have, let's say, municipality in Wi-Fi for Europe, are they subject to the open internet regulation? And I mean, the link with this discussion is indeed because if there is a need of having, let us say, management of capacity, I mean, that will also be linked to the lack of spectrum. Thank you for your possible reply.
Hervé, do you want to take that? I mean, I know it's not probably purely your
No,
remit,
exactly. Obviously, from where I come from, we are implementing a framework which is established by the European Commission in a regulation and in a program. So in a way, I can only speak as an implementer of that policy, not for future policy goals or regulations or proposals of decision, like the one for the WRC and so on. So speaking just within the framework of Wi-Fi for EU, we did not impose any constraints on the beneficiaries. So the municipalities had the freedom to establish those hotspots where they thought was most needed, open spaces. So it could be also a school, it could be a health center, it could be any place accessible to the public. And provided that there was indeed not a prior installation of a Wi-Fi hotspot by private stakeholders in that area, so that you avoid this kind of undue competition. If there's already a service of free Wi-Fi there, there's no point having us competing with the local hotspots. We never got any complaint, to be honest. It was done in a very sensible way. The local municipalities know where the needs are, so it was never an issue. It was done in a very sensible way. So that's, let's say, how the reality on the ground looks like.
Well, the Wi-Fi for EU program demonstrates the attractiveness of Wi-Fi, doesn't it? I mean, I think free money from the Commission obviously helps, but it was hugely oversubscribed. And do you see because we're talking a little bit about policy initiatives going forward, do you see any possibility of building on that? Any new schemes that
So again, I can only give you the snapshot of the situation today. The Commission works on the basis of multi-annual work programs. And in the current work program, there is no plan to have yet another call for Wi-Fi for EU. So the scheme is now, in a way, in this kind of last phase of the life cycle. It doesn't preclude, the future, of course, or future work programs. What we do have in the current work program for the Connecting Europe Facility program are initiatives to promote 5G for smart communities. So in a way, you find again this kind of a clear link and intention of the European Commission to reach out to the local stakeholders, the local authorities, to try and build together with telecom operators, in this case, local application use cases that will, make demonstration of a particular use case, which can be replicated elsewhere in Europe. So that's another angle, let's say, to the reach out to the local communities that the European Commission has planned and has started to roll out in the current work program. But the current work program will finish this year. There will be a new one for the coming years.
We are very proud also. Yeah. We are very proud of Wi-Fi for You initiative because a lot of municipalities make finally a step change also for the connectivity in order to improve the services for Wi-Fi services. So a lot of them moved to fiber, and a lot of regional operators inside IP participated to this step change. So it's a very welcome initiative.
I think there was another question here. Was that you?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Davide Rossi. I work for the European Association of Consumer Electronic Retailers. We are a little bit worried of what we have heard because at the moment we are pushing consumers to more and more buy major domestic appliances connected. And there is already a legacy very present, not only for domestic appliances, but also for TV sets, for security cameras, refrigeration, heating, and more. We are convincing consumers to do this also for environment reasons. And the future scenario when we shall have a coexistence of 5G connected devices and Wi-Fi connected devices will create in consumers a little bit of confusion, especially what Marta was saying. The best way to have indoor connectivity is certainly broadband plus Wi-Fi. And we are really worried in the future to tell consumers to do something that maybe should not work properly with a connection which is maybe hard to reach because of the huge walls or whatever other problems that a 5G connection might have. So we would like to know if you have explored this area and what can be the answer about these worries.
Who wants to take that?
Maybe I can give some thoughts. So indeed, the decision about opening the 6 gigahertz band comes after many years of studies, and we have some administrations that have already moved forward in opening the entire band. Many of them are 5G pioneers, like Korea, like US, Canada, Saudi Arabia, Brazil. So what we are seeing in those cases is that the ecosystem, the vendors, the manufacturers have been creating more and more devices that can make use of the entire band. According to the numbers we have, there have been more than 350 million chipsets that have been delivered already for Wi-Fi 6E. And there is Intel, one of the companies that works on this advocacy. They are tracking the number of devices in the market. So according to the numbers of December last year, there were more than 1,200 devices in the market using the entire band. So I perfectly understand your concern because we are talking here about smartphones, computers, tablets, TVs. There are more and more TVs, of course, access points. And all those devices operate in the entire band, and they could make use, of course, administrations that decide to open just a portion of the band. It means that vendors will need to modify by firmware the devices, but it's a shame because they can operate in the entire band, and then you're basically reducing them, forcing them to operate just in a portion of it. And there is a concern in the long term. What happens if administrations open the lower part They find that IMT is not going to be sustainable, that there is too hard to clean the band, to operate with others, and then they decide to open the entire band. Users will need to change their devices because it's not that easy. You know, it's not so simple. I mean, many of you, if you go to a public Wi-Fi network, most of the time they keep the same name of the network that the vendor gives. They don't even modify those parameters. It's hard to imagine final consumers modifying their devices to operate in the entire band. So I do think that is an important matter. And I think that's also our key message about harmonization and trying to reach economies of scale, because at the end they will benefit consumers.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the second panel of the day. Earlier on we heard about technology, the detail of policy. Now we're going to hear about why Wi-Fi is important. What is it used for? We have a very diverse panel with us. It involves many different sectors. It includes an equipment vendor, a supplier of connectivity, and I think very interestingly, people who are involved in developing the services that will rely on it. I'm going to introduce them to you. First of all, we are going to have Patrick Bordeaux. He's president of the European Association for Extended Reality, EuroXR. Then we're going to hear from Martino Canonicio, and he's head of the Brussels office of the European Association of E-Pharmacies. So he's going to discuss with us the e-health use cases for Wi-Fi. We have Christoph Sommerberg, who will give the perspective of a supplier of broadband connectivity. He's head of public affairs at Deutsche Glasfaser. Then we'll have Paolo Valenti. He wears two hats today. He's both the Chief Executive Officer at Smart Lamppost, and he's also representing European digital SMEs. And last but not least, we have Diane Nieves, who's Head of EU Telecoms and Sustainability Policy at Cisco. So first of all, we're going to put you in the hands of Patrick. He's actually put together a couple of slides to illustrate what is XR, what is it used for, and why is connectivity important? So over to you, Patrick.
Thank you for the introduction. So extended reality, I'm sure you know that it's an immersive interactive technology from virtual reality up to mixed reality, and that includes augmented reality technology. And basically, we need to interact with many data, thanks to depth perception, 3D interaction, and that via multisensory channels. Anyway, as example of our needs for Wi-Fi, I provide two use cases, basically. First one is real-time 3D interaction, immersive interaction with huge and complex data sets that we name generally immersive analytics. And this kind of application needs an efficient interconnection with big data servers, but locally you need a direct connection between local computers and XR device. And that is a big issue with the Wi-Fi because we need more bandwidth than presently. On the other hand, apart this issue to connect to data server, we need to have local computing about on the data to prepare the presentation in an immersive way, based, for instance, on ontology. So it's a double example from this first use case. A second one is, next slide, please. Okay, is all immersive collaborative interaction. We need immersive collaboration for collaborative design, training, teaching, and here you have huge and structured data, but you need also to manage multimedia in teaching and learning, we need also a secure interaction via the Wi-Fi for teleoperation, for instance, for surgery or nuclear. And the main issue everywhere is how to have interconnection between local computer and XR device in a wireless way.
Thank you very much. Now, Martino, you represent e-pharmacies. Can you tell us a bit more about the future of healthcare, what role connectivity will play in that respect, both for the suppliers of healthcare and also, of course, everyday citizens?
Yeah, So first of all, thank you for having me here today. I think, first of all, what is an online pharmacy? Because perhaps this could be, a concept that is not familiar to everyone. I think we've been created and fostered since the creation of digitalization, the spread of digitalization around the globe. And, we deal on a daily basis with digital health services. So everything that we can do to come closer to the patient, thanks to digital tools, technology, and any kind of things that can be done also thanks to internet connectivity and specifically Wi-Fi at home. So online pharmacies eventually are a bit of a good example, in my opinion, of the positive aspects that internet connectivity can bring to the patients. Healthcare in general is probably, if not the major sector, probably among the major sector where enhanced digitalization can bring an actual game changer for the patient, for the consumer, for the citizen in general. And, we as e-pharmacies and as pharmacies, we intend good connectivity, good internet connection in a sense that helps us to better support. It can be chronic patients, it can be patients living, we've heard before talking about rural areas, it can be patients living with mobility issues, so anybody that's, while staying at home, wants to access the same extent of healthcare support that could be reached while face-to-face or while physically at the doctor or while physically in a pharmacy. So in general, I would say that it's a win not only for the patient that wants to access healthcare on a daily basis from the comfort of the house, but it's also a win for the healthcare system as a whole, because we tend to break some of the barriers that digitalization in general helps to break. When it comes to accessing healthcare, when it comes to not losing time or just about reducing the burden on, such as the cost on the healthcare system, on buildings and energy spending and so on and so forth. So many different things. Happy to discuss this today with you.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm moving over to Christoph now. So you deploy fiber. Why is Wi-Fi important to you?
Yeah, thanks, Ilsa. As a provider of fiber infrastructure in Germany, we are one of the first, so Germany is a bit behind, but nevertheless, in Germany, we have started mostly in rural and in suburban areas to deploy fiber. And what we've seen is that Wi-Fi is the crucial complement of the fiber line, because it is used by almost all residential users to connect their final devices with the fiber line. And when we take into account that with the current bandwidths we deliver as residential service, up to 1 gig, we've just scratched the surface of the capabilities of fiber in the future. And we see today that the old Wi-Fi equipment not using the 6 gigahertz band is basically not performing as well as the fiber line. We see the increasing need to deploy Wi-Fi in the complete 6 gigahertz band as a necessary complement to create take-up and demand for fiber, and therefore increase the deployment of fiber, especially in rural and in suburban areas. So fiber plus Wi-Fi transforms those rural areas and brings all the advantages that they have, inherent advantages like living quality, etc., brings them, or it strengthens them and allows them even to overtake urban areas in terms of businesses stationed there, in terms of living quality, and in terms of creating, let's say, a very positive living environment. We as Deutsche Glasfaser have introduced our first Wi-Fi 6E router, commercial router, for our consumers May last year, and our first experience, and I don't know if Giovanni is there, he mentioned that already. Our experience is the same. It really transforms the customer experience of the power we bring to those customers by fiber. They really experience that the first time if they have Wi-Fi 6E in addition to that. So first point is we need powerful Wi-Fi. We need the complete 6 gigahertz spectrum to free the capabilities of fiber for all consumers, for residential users, for municipal users. We talked about Wi-Fi for EU, for schools, for companies, etc. Second point, and I'm very grateful to Sean that he already put that up in the first panel. Basically, Wi-Fi is a network of the people for the people. In Germany, if you use your Wi-Fi router at home, you're basically your own operator. So it's not the fiber operator that is operating this network. It's not somebody else. You are the one that is operating this network, and that means you as a residential user, you as a school board, as a municipality, etc. And Sean talked about it. It's very difficult to combine the combined interest of these users and be a voice for them, because they do not know what will be taken away from them in the future. They have not one voice. And that's why it's important to have events like this, to go outside and tell everybody that is responsible for, especially combined operations like a school board, like municipalities, what they will lose. I would like to make that clear on one example. In Germany, we have a very ambitious program to connect every school to fiber. That's good, but if it stops in the basement, basically, because nobody thinks about what's going on now. How do I bring those bandwidths to the devices that I used in a digital classroom? Those are not fixed devices, or if you're very old, if they're very old, they're still fixed devices. There are tower PCs, but usually you're working with some kind of mobile device like a laptop or an iPad, or as we are with Microsoft, a Surface. So therefore you need Wi-Fi, and that's not thought about. Today, they even say, sorry, we had to disengage the student Wi-Fi because it brought down the teacher's Wi-Fi every time there was recess or when they used that in class, and that cannot be. Therefore, we need bandwidth for education, we need bandwidth for the companies and also residential users. And therefore, it's important that government acts as an agent for all this combined usage, or what you called it, value, that is distributed but cannot be combined in an economic offer, let's say. That's for now.
Thank you very much. Paolo, I'd like to ask you, using your first hat, what have lampposts got to do with Wi-Fi?
Thank you, Ilse, for the question, and it's interesting that you ask it. Smart lampposts is a concept that you repurpose urban furniture that is all over the cities and also in rural areas, and you repurpose it to deploy several services, several technologies. Connectivity is one of them, naturally. And Wi-Fi is a critical piece. First, because it's all over, it's easily accessible, but also because it doesn't depend on the rollout plan of mobile operators. I can give you the example that is completely the opposite. If you talk about a 5G small cell, it will depend on the rollout plan of the mobile operator because it's a licensed frequency, it's a licensed technology, and for that I cannot simply deploy it in a city. If I'm working with a city to improve their coverage plans on what they are doing with their citizens, it's not up to them to simply decide. They can, I can say, guide the mobile operators, telling them, I would like to improve the coverage here, but they cannot force them. And it's a very difficult process to do it. If you are talking about Wi-Fi, it's completely different, because they can have their own control over the connectivity and the coverage, and they can do it simply. I can give you an example. A while ago, I participated in a massive connectivity coverage plan process in a stadium, and the two alternatives were 5G and Wi-Fi. And the problem is, it's always dependent on the mobile operator to put more and more equipment, and sometimes the resistance to invest according to the interests of the clients or the potential clients. Sometimes it's, I wouldn't say too rational, but it's beyond rationality. It's a bit of defensive. And Wi-Fi, it was completely under the control of the football club that was covering their own stadium, and they had a very important attendance regularly. But for the business model of a mobile operator, it's not easy to simply jump on this decision. To deploy it with Wi-Fi, it's up to the promoter of the large public venue to do it. So they have the full control on doing the according to their timings. And this is something that in Smart Lamppost we feel that when we are working with, for example, with municipalities, that is one important part of our work, we can do it easily and without any restraints when we are talking about connectivity with Wi-Fi. If you are talking about 5G, it's something that is different. So we think that combined, it needs to work like that, but it should not be either one or the other. That's our understanding.
Now, Diane, you produce devices which are Wi-Fi enabled, so you must have come across a wide range of use cases. We've already heard some from other panelists today. You tell us what else Wi-Fi can support, the other use cases that you've been involved with at Cisco.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for having me. As you know, I'm with Cisco, so we are a B2B company who provide basically the network equipment. We are also a hardware, software, and services vendor. And so what we really want to do is really to enable our customers to connect, but also to be in a position to basically also automate and secure. So it was really interesting to hear also from your example on stadium, because, for example, last year, together with the Real Madrid, actually, we teamed up to create the largest Wi-Fi 6E network stadium. Because it was really the solution for them. So they really wanted for the Madrid stadium, and I hope that we have a few football fans here, to make sure that we would have the best experiences for all the fans that would go to the stadium. And clearly, Wi-Fi was the perfect technology for them to make that happen. A second example I was thinking of, and this was really interesting also to hear from the Commission in the first panel about the interest for Wi-Fi for EU, because one of the critical things right now in cities is also smart buildings. So, for example, if we look at a city like London, there's really a mismatch actually between what we can call the green buildings and also the companies that have net zero goals in place, and that really needs, to have the network in place to make sure, that they can also reach out their net zero commitments. And so, for example, recently, but we have also many other examples, but recently we partnered with a French company called Vinci. They are active in construction, actually, and so they really wanted to renew their headquarters. And they had, several requirements. So first, they really wanted to make sure that they would have seamless connectivity, so the minute employees will get in the building, there would be seamless connectivity, same at home. So all their devices, whether it is smartphone, their tablet, their laptop would connect automatically. And then the second thing was really sustainability requirements. How can they make sure that they reduce their carbon footprint? And the third thing was to have something affordable. And this is, three qualities that Wi-Fi actually gathers. And so this is also why we really truly believe that Wi-Fi 6 will be powering the green transition of smart buildings.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to return to you, Patrick. Why is it that you really need an upgrade of Wi-Fi to support the services you supply? I mean, what are the technical requirements?
So it's possible to have some slide in the appendix, please. Anyway, next one, please. Next.
There are only two.
Next.
Sorry, we have some facts and figures that we're hoping to share with you here.
You have here some figures which are really interesting for XR. We need, for instance, for 8K video, about 1,000 megabytes per second. That also depending of the codec and the quality of the codec. We need a motion camera moving object in the scene, so that increase the bandwidth. We need for multi-user collaboration also to multiply the bandwidth by the number of cameras involved. That is for the visual cue. But we have also needs for haptic rendering, for instance. For sure, the first issue for haptics is high frame rate, 1 kilohertz, and a low latency, 1 millisecond. And that is some figure for our needs. For video point of view, also there is a challenge. We need a motion photon latency which must be less than 20 milliseconds. So it's a number of issues we have, and it's some figure that Wi-Fi must address.
That leads on to a follow-up question I had. There's a lot of discussion about quality assured services provided via 5G, and of course there's now discussions about the development of 6G. What do you think the respective roles of these two technologies are? Perhaps I can ask that first to Diane.
Sure. So for us, it's really not about, Wi-Fi vs 5G, but more about, the complementarities between the two technologies and also, what they can do for each other. And so what we see is that in some use cases, Wi-Fi would be more adaptable, and then for other use cases, like, for example, outdoor urban cases, then it would be more like 5G. But, really at the end of the day, and I think this is also what Marta was saying, in the first panel, it's not about, that we are against 5G, not at all. At the contrary, for us, for Cisco, 5G is very important too. It's more about for the 6 gigahertz band, what is the most appropriate technology? And there it is really Wi-Fi. So again, depending of the use cases, depending also of, and for us, for example, it really depends on the customers. What is the customer need? What is the application that they will need to operate? And so for that, we will make the choice of 5G or Wi-Fi.
Thank you very much. And Paolo, you're deploying lampposts, as I understand it, which would have both capabilities on it. Can you explain the respective roles or how those would work together?
Yes. Both technologies work well. The thing is, to deploy one of them, Wi-Fi, it's easier to have the full control over this deployment because it's up to the promoter to do it. When you are talking about 5G small cells, which is the case, it's more, what we see in the field, it's taking much more time. So the mobile operators are, I wouldn't say they are not prioritizing for the time being this deployment. It's taking its time. And while they are taking this time, the connectivity is not happening. So there must be solutions that will, let's say, complement and will be useful for consumers. On top of that, there is an additional thing, which if the decisions that will end up with the WRC in the end of the year, it will imply that will not be, let's say, a shared use of these frequencies. What it will mean is that if we are already seeing that with the 5G that is already available, the implementation is not so fast as needed, what will happen with these frequencies that will be restricted from being used from many technologies. It's not only Wi-Fi, all the unlicensed technologies can use these frequencies. And this is also something, a concern, it's also a concern that we see in our, let's say, availabilities to what we deploy.
You're also representing digital SMEs. Can you talk a bit about how SMEs more generally are going to be making use of Wi-Fi going forwards?
There is an important distinction. SMEs are both users and, let's say, manufacturers, implementers of technology. And for us, having a full portfolio of technologies available, or at least in this case, talking specifically about Wi-Fi, if you look from a perspective of an European SME compared to other geographies, let's go for the United States, which is a good case, the European SMEs will be, let's say, diminished in their own possibilities. So they will not have the same possibilities that, for example, an American SME will have on their portfolio. Because what we are manufacturing, we already have a restriction. We can manufacture for the other market, but it's not as we are limiting the possibilities of European SMEs in what they deploy. So I would say it will hinder it.
Thank you very much. I'm conscious that there may well be some questions from the floor. We have another 5-10 minutes. Please go ahead. I think there's a microphone somewhere.
Yeah. The title of this session is Connectivity for the People and for the Planet. Do we have any answer to what it means deploying Wi-Fi for the planet, maybe from a sustainability point of view?
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, for sure. And it touches also upon the example that of the stadium. You need only one network to serve all people that want to use the facility. You need to install just one Wi-Fi network because everybody can connect to Wi-Fi. In the case of 5G, 6G, 7G, whatever, you need all four networks because some customers are, some users are customers of one network, the others of the second network, and if you have no national roaming, you need all networks present to have a semblance of the same service. But especially in case of 5G or 6G, you need the respective contracts. So users that have older phones or users that do not want to pay for this extended new services are excluded. And that's why the title is perfect, because it's for everyone, with every device that has Wi-Fi capabilities, and you just need one network. That would be my take on this.
Thank you.
I can answer too.
Yeah.
Yes, for the society, you will have also a big advantage about all remote training, all remote learning, to have the sensation of presence in an immersive way between teacher and children. That is very important. And also for collaborative design, how you can stop to take a flight to go somewhere. If you have the opportunity to have inside, outside, everywhere, the Wi-Fi which allow collaborative design, you will save the planet somewhere. It's an example. Reduce our traveling, physical traveling. You know, today I had to take my car from Paris. It's strange, but anyway. But for collaborative design, teaching, learning, healthcare, all this category of application can involve XR and Wi-Fi and also other kind of technology, and that will save the planet.
Yeah.
I wish.
Diane?
We all do.
Yeah, so I just wanted to come back to that because, you know, for example, Cisco launched a few years ago a program that is called the Country Digital Acceleration Program, CDA, where we do actually partner with the local industry, with the government, and also with academia, really trying to boost the digital agenda of the government. But right now, of course, with the green transition, we see also a lot of how can we make sure that we combine this green and digital agenda. And so, for example, to give you just one, 2 years ago, with Greece, with the Greek authorities in Thessaloniki, we opened a Digital Transformation and Skills Center. By the way, it's European Year of Skills. This year is going to be very important also to for Wi-Fi also later on. And what we really try to do with this digital center is really how can we basically enable the local industry, but also, you know, whatever use case that we've just seen here. And so this is really what the authorities told us, is that Wi-Fi is definitely the connectivity, you know, that makes the most impact for them. So this is why, you know, it was really relying on this. And again, I truly believe that as a connectivity mean, it will be really empowering the green and digital transition.
Okay, thank you. Were there any other questions from the floor? I see one over here.
Thank you. Vincent Garnier, FTTH Council Europe. I have a question maybe for Patrick or Diane related to the fact that fiber is being deployed in maybe so far half of the household has potentially access to fiber in Europe, and we're moving towards a much higher proportion. We're bringing 1 gigabit, but there are already some service provider offering 10 gigabit. There are some talks about even higher bandwidth. I would like to understand when you envisage future application, and if we project ourselves I don't know, 3, 5, 10 years ahead. What level of bandwidth do you expect, and how Wi-Fi with the use of the 6 gigahertz upper bandwidth, how do you connect everything technically in terms of bandwidth requirement with future application? Are we really going to need that bandwidth, and to what extent will the new spectrum be essential for Wi-Fi to be able to handle these applications?
Okay. As I explained, we have bandwidth needs, but not only. We need high frequency, we need low latency, we need motion photon latency, very low latency at this level. We need also to stop the channel limitation with the Wi-Fi. It's very important to be able to connect many devices for a real collaborative interaction in an area, and that is not possible today. I will understand. So that is an example where the Wi-Fi have a number of challenges to target.
If I may, so of course, from a Cisco perspective, definitely we believe, that there will be a need for additional spectrum to make sure, that all the devices that we see coming also on the market and all the new applications will work. But I would like to give you also the point of view of the users. So Cisco every year runs this, so it's called the Broadband Survey Index, where basically we try globally to ask all the broadband users about their connectivity needs, the challenges, what they would like to see also, and of course, just to understand also a bit how they use the internet at home, at work, and so on. And so 72% of them clearly said that there's a need, for more bandwidth, for faster connectivity. Also, it's according to them, it also is crucial in the decision they take when they move. And so, thinking about Europe, who wants to retain skills, who wants to retain the industry here, we also have to make sure, that we can provide the necessary connectivity here for Europeans and make sure, indeed, that they can thrive. Of course, European workers, but also, industry.
Thank you. I think I'd like to leave the last word to a user. So, Martino, if all kind of barriers were removed and if consumers had access to as much bandwidth as they needed in the home, and there was bandwidth available as well across all of the various pharmacies, other healthcare outlets, what would the future of telemedicine look like in that scenario?
Well, I mean, I think to have a starting point, to go back to what Marta said earlier, I think the COVID-19 pandemic made it quite clear to all of us that we, as individuals, but also as a society, we strongly rely on internet connectivity, specifically Wi-Fi when at home, and therefore on digital services, any kind of digital service, in our case, of course, digital health services. So if you think about, again, the COVID-19 pandemic, if you take, elderly persons or high-risk categories of patients, these were all people that heavily relied on the possibility of accessing healthcare through digital means, whether it could be for ordering medication easily from home, or to have telemedicine support, which was a major thing. Data testify for that during the COVID-19 pandemic, without being exposed to the danger of the virus. So, just to say that as a starting point, it is to have good connectivity. It's as important as making sure that these people, that old people, have access to medication and treatments in general. If the question is about what can we do to break some of the existing barriers and to look at the future, I think it's quite straightforward. It's to ensure also through the application that, for instance, Patrick mentioned before, is to ensure that we create that kind of human relationship that is already difficult to have behind a screen, and it's of course more and more difficult if technology does not allow for it, because it doesn't maximize the experience. So if I have to choose, I would say that going towards a situation, a circumstance, a world, an environment where we make life easier by increasing this making it stronger, this human relationship, it would be probably the main priority, but also ensuring continuity of care. In our case, we've got many and many samples that are being, created nowadays or being created in the past 10 years of how we can monitor the health of the patient at home on a daily basis, on a continued basis, where it could be, coupling telemedicine services with, wearable devices that, keep on giving data to either the physician or the pharmacist on a certain issue. So it's really about making sure that we are covered at home and that we don't have to every time go to the hospital, to the pharmacy, or having physicians at home for a doctor visits. We believe that the consumer, the user, and in our case the patient, should have the freedom of choice of whether to use the online dimension, the digital dimension, or the physical dimension, depending on the ad hoc need and support needed, right? So technology, as we see on a daily basis, can really help with this, can really help to break this barrier, and the future of telemedicine is really dependent on this, I think.
Thank you very much. So our life may well depend on it. I'd like you all to give a round of applause to our panelists. Thank you very much. I think it's time to hand over them.
And with that, I would like to give the floor to our keynote speaker, the member of the European Parliament, Mr. Zorrinho. His political career spans almost 30 years and included positions in national and local government, including 17 years as member of the Parliament and 8 years in the Portuguese government. He has been a member of the European Parliament since 2014, and in this capacity, he has taken an important role on various pieces of legislation related to ICT infrastructure. Among them, he has been rapporteur for the Wi-Fi for EU regulation, which we have heard about previously, and that has allowed to bring public Wi-Fi in many municipalities around Europe. So it's really a great initiative, and we are very glad that he was working on that. So, Mr. Zorrinho, thank you for being with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. It's a big pleasure to be here, to learn with you, to share with you some remarks. I have a long experience. It means I'm an old man, but my experience, a very good English, but I will try to communicate the better I can. Let us focus on what brought us there today. Wi-Fi matters, yes. And the Wi-Fi matters why? Because connectivity matters, but not only a technological approach of connectivity. Connectivity as a purpose. As you underline in the subject of this event, it matters to deliver an inclusive, sustainable, and connected life for Europeans. And in the last panel, a connectivity for the people and for the planet. We have this afternoon a very rich exchange of views. But I feel that all the speeches and experiences are aligned with a very strong conceptual axis. The idea that we have a human-centric approach. And the human-centric approach, it's our DNA. And our challenge is to make that DNA an individual, European, and global winner. It's not easy, but it's a survival question. And a winner in a conceptual, but also in a practical point of view. A winner approach for citizens, for enterprises, for the planet, a winner approach for the rights and the freedom project that brings us together in the European partnership, and also a winner DNA for the world, for the new, I like to call the new globalization. People say there are no more the globalization. People say that in the future is about protectionism. I think the future is about a new kind of globalization, neuronal globalization. You can link, make different synopses, better synopsis, worse synopsis, but a neuronal globalization where we are living now. And talking about neurons, let me share with you some memories very quickly. In 2016, Wi-Fi for You initiative was born. A star was born. Launched in 2016 by Jean-Claude Juncker in the State of the Union address. Its aim was to reconnect citizens with the European Union. Is to link people to the EU, okay. 120 million euros to link people with you is a big challenge. Allowing them high-quality internet access, shared services, and useful and certified information. I was the European Parliament rapporteur in this initiative, and with a funding of 120 million euros in its first phase, it was an implementation success. 5,700 municipalities have installed more than 7,500 networks and more than 70,000 high-quality wireless internet access points across Europe. And I think that most of these Wi-Fi installations also give place to others that are not financed by the program, but we create a wage, a very strong wage in this way. And the second phase of the initiative will be the creation of a single authentication system and an European portal for citizens based in Wi-Fi. The implementation of this second phase, taking into account new technological solutions and synergies, will be part of the Digital Decades initiative. Wi-Fi for You message was very clear. Inclusion, sustainability, and connectivity need skills, inclusion, and access. Jean-Claude Juncker told in 2016, everyone benefiting from connectivity means that it should not matter where you live or how much you earn. Not dependent of the money, not dependent of the place. It's more difficult to deal with skills, but we need also to create the conditions to be not dependent to the skills. In a written question that I addressed to Commissioner Thierry Breton about the new steps inspired by Wi-Fi for You initiative, I received from the Commissioner or from his team 2 clear messages in reply. First, they told that a single Wi-Fi for You authentication service would allow seamless interoperability and roaming between wireless networks in full compliance with data protection law and applicable privacy rules, especially as the system does not require personal data to be used or shared in order to be functional. And in second, indeed, synergies with the recently proposed European Digital Identity Wallet could be exploited in order to provide all Europeans with a highable, secure and responsible way to access digital services through free wireless connectivity and without the need to disclose personal data. So I think that when we talk about access for all, not left anyone behind, to achieve also and to create smart rural communities with full access, we can to put in the program that is now in preparation by the DG Connect and to be implemented by the DG Informatics to put the Wi-Fi and the concept of Wi-Fi for You in the process as part of the toolbox in the process. And now it's time to deliver the digital decade, I think. First, in my opinion, we need to boost a European Union as a conceptual power. To be a conceptual power, it's our market target. It's our advantage. When you look to the investment in the United States, Japan, South Korea, China, and so on, there are more engineers, more investment. But you have the key, the concept. It's not enough. It's a good beginning. It's the key. It's the key. And you have the key to do what? In my opinion, and I work as in the European Parliament to try to do that, to be a regulatory reference to the global gigabit society. The good part of our concepts, not the bureaucracy or red tape, the good part of our concept. And that means, about the infrastructure issue, that if you want to be a global regulatory power, we need to create a level playing field with our main competitors. And it's in that way that I understand the proposal made about the spectrum. And I'm not an engineer, but about the spectrum, we need to take in consideration that to harmonize the three regions could be a very good idea. But if you want to be the inspiration, we need also to have a level playing field to put this inspiration working for us, for our enterprises, for our people, and also for the enterprises from other for the United States or from Canada, that need to work, like Microsoft or Metaverse, need to work here in Europe as an European company. Is what is my idea. I don't care about if there's an American company. If it works here as a European company, if you create a regulation that it's inspired by our concept, the enterprises that grows in Europe have an advantage also. And it's an advantage that is good for people, good for planet. I believe in that. I'm an Europeist. And we need also to create a human-centered and business-friendly environment. I think that you need to launch, in an analogy with the Green Deal, and all of you know what is the Green Deal, you need also to launch a data deal. What means the data deal? It means that, okay, the citizens give us the data we need to be competitive, and we give to the citizens better services, better offers, better access. We need to make clear with the citizens in Europe this data deal. And the data deal means that when we talk about and you think about the digital identity, and in Portugal we are a little in some steps in front of the project of the European Union. When we think about the digital identity, the wallet of numbers and access and so on, we need to put also in the wallet the services and the values embedded. And this could mean a very strong data deal. And finally, only because we have no all the data to be here, but finally, I think you need also to put in place a joint effort to create a competitive infrastructure, also financed by big platforms. I co-signed a letter to the commissioner some months ago with other colleagues, and it's in consultation, as you know. But I think we need that. We need to put all the players working together to create a competitive offer that is available to people that can choose and pay, and people that need to have the minimum access to our dignity and our needs. And to achieve these goals, I think Wi-Fi matters. The COVID-19 experience demonstrated that bad internet connections are no longer just a lifestyle problem, but make all aspects of life more challenging. And those who do not have access to high-speed internet will be left behind. The digital transformation of entire European society, including small and medium enterprises, like the very interesting enterprise of my friend Paul, is a free promotion, free advertising. But startups, other industries, or education, or civic participation, even democracy, all of that is dependent of the mix of all technologies, 5G, 6G, fiber, satellite, and Wi-Fi. We need the best of all the available and the future technologies. We need the best of all. And policymakers have a responsibility to make sure that Europe adopts a technology-neutral approach to the infrastructure that needs to put in place to reach the Gigabit society target by 2030. I told technology-neutral approach, but not neutral in values, neutral in technology. Technology neutral in technology, okay? If Europe, I want to say that I promise for my part a high level of commitment in this responsibility to policymakers. If Europe fails to do so, its citizens and businesses risk missing out on the next wave of technological and social innovation. And I want to say that the discussions and actions during this event confirm my optimistic realism. Nothing will happen without a collaborative effort, without a proposal, without a vision, without something of spirit to win. The time to make it happen is now. Is the time to deliver. Thank you very much.
It's a great speech, and I will just take one sentence: human-centered approach and business-friendly. I think that really matters and gives the right conditions. So for my closing remarks, first and foremost, I would like to express our deep thanks to all the speakers and all of you who stay until the end of the session. Very much appreciated. And we also would like to make sure that, I will just try to emphasize one important message from this session. Wi-Fi matters, and it should be included in the European strategy. We think that it's important to recognize all the technologies, we just mentioned them before: satellite, fiber, 5G, fixed access, and Wi-Fi as a key part of any broadband access plan. And that goal, even if it seems at a very high level, at the end depends on the very technical decisions that Europe will make for WRC23. So that future for broadband connectivity really happens and is related to the position Europe will have for the upper 6 gigahertz band, and we find that a no-change position will give the most of the flexibility for incumbents to continue operating, and also for future for different sectors in Europe, citizens and also enterprises. And I think probably some of you didn't have the time during the coffee break, but I really encourage you to see the demos. That will give you an overview of how the future looks like. You will see some of the applications we heard about augmented virtual reality, and also the performance that we could expect and we can see with Wi-Fi 6E and future Wi-Fi 7. Again, a very warm thank you to all of you. I hope these different insights of why Wi-Fi matters will help you consider the importance of this technology. And as DSA and our associated members, we remain at your disposal if you need any further information or any technical details. And also our allies, each one from their different perspectives, is glad to continue this engagement and this discussion. So again, thank you and have a very good rest of the day. Bye-bye.